YPC Lunchtime Webinars. On today's session, I have Dr. Baloyi that will be joining us. And I think what's interesting on today's session is that we're taking a bit, sort of like a step back before, everyone started careers, but also try to appreciate some of the steps we had to take in terms of the journey itself as we transitioned from university and getting into the working place, but also looking at some of the do's and don'ts that you have to be cautious about, and some of the things that we had to learn the hard way to actually get to that point. In terms of how we're going to run this specific session, it will be a roundtable discussion. I have Yunali Hall that will be co-hosting with me. And I'd like to also give a chance to just welcome her in. And then Dr. Baloyi, I'll also then give you a chance to also give a bit of background around yourself, but also give us a nice snapshot around how you transitioned to the point where you are at the moment. Yunali, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm sorry if there's a bit of a background noise. I'm actually busy with casework as engineers and busy people usually are. So I would just like to thank Dr. Baloyi and everyone for the opportunity to hear and talk about, the progress as young professionals. So I'll hand over back to Wesley so that we can speak to Dr. Baloyi.
Awesomeness. Now I'd like to open up the floor to Dr. Baloyi. You may go ahead and unmute yourself, and then turn on the camera.
Okay. No, thanks, Wesley. For sure, now I put on the camera, everyone can see my face.
Yes.
Thanks. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you yourself, Wesley, and the team on the good work you are doing, and also to appreciate all the attendees who have made time to sacrifice and to join us, to have lunch with us. My name is Jeffrey Baloyi, and then I'm the senior researcher based at the CSR. So yeah, and then that's it for now. But yes.
Yeah,
I'll just pause here for now.
So I think let me guide you through it. Dr. Baloyi, maybe for starters, when you completed university, how was that initial transition into getting employment? Because I know one of the things that was a challenge, especially for me after completing university, was that our bursary told us that they won't be funding us moving into final year. So essentially what that meant is that we're not guaranteed any employment after that. How was your experience transitioning from university and into the working place?
Yeah, the transition has always been very challenging, which is more to all of us as especially as the young people leaving the university, going to the workplace. And then it has not been easy, because one of the challenging things that as a young person, you have this imaginary workplace which you have created in your mind, while as you enter the workplace, you find the environment being different from what you might be thinking of. And then also the contribution might be that the work readiness effort, which most of the university are not much engaging on. So it has been challenging like any other youth in terms of like, first thing, the workplace, the rules are very much important and one need to adhere to. So the freedom which one had at the university, it get to be compromised, because now at the university one can do whatever they like, and then Some students sometimes choose not to go to class in time, and sometimes some are late in 5 minutes. So every minute which you spend at the workplace, that is directly linked to the money which the company is generating, the revenues. So it's very important. And also there is no small work or small effort or whatever. All the work which one has to do is the work which is very important and playing a huge role within the particular company. And even myself, when I started at the Mintech, and then projects which we're doing were massive projects which has a direct impact to the country itself. And then as you get to do some work packages on the project, it has been challenging because the expectations are much on high standards. And then also there's no room, like in the university, maybe one can say, as long as I can get a Mododa score of 50%, then I know that I'm fine, and then I'll see in the next test. So meaning perfection, it's also important that everything is expected to be perfect. So those are the challenges in terms of when one has to look in terms of moving from, transitioning from that being a graduate and then going to a workplace.
No, I hear you. I think one of the things that you mentioned, quite interesting, the fact that when you're in the workplace, right, you can't really be giving a 50% type of effort to get the output or product in terms of whatever you'll be doing in that environment. But one other thing that I've also noticed that when you transition from university into the workplace, most people tend to not have adequate confidence in terms of how they show up in that environment. And if, for example, you were used to getting the 50s and 60s, already there's also that gap in terms of knowledge where you feel that you might not know enough. How does then one actually bridge that gap to say, I feel confident enough to execute in this environment, but also I know that the output that I'm bringing to the table adds value? How do you get over that insecurity in terms of what you bring to the table, but also getting to the point where now you are contributing as an equal professional compared to other engineers and so on?
All right. Now, I think one of the most important thing in terms which can assist, which I have learned from also from my experience, is that the career planning itself, it plays a very huge role, which we don't have to take it light. So the university is much easier, and then I'm registered for chemical engineering, I'm registered for auditing, I'm registered for any course, metallurgy, and then so you know that the career planning has always been set for us. You'll have first year going to second year until fourth year, and then now you can go to masters, you can go to that or go to a workplace like that. So the career plan has always been set. But the question now, when you get to the workplace, the first thing is that you need to have a very clear career plan. The career plan meaning that as soon as you get inside, you must have mentors, and also associate yourself with the youth academic organization, which are meant to guide and also offer opportunities for engagement with your peers, like what we're in now, which it's a good platform, so which you affiliate. And then affiliation is also important in these youth organizations, which are there in different fields. So that also assists you in terms of the career planning. And then, so these are some of the things that we really need to look into, because failure to do that, there are two things which are likely to happen, especially when you are in a country like South Africa, where the unemployment rate is very high. And then as a result, you have majority of the students going into this workplace in a form of internship. And the rewards in terms of that need someone who's patient, because the rewards in terms of monetary values, which we always have dreamed of when you study engineering, might not be as we expected. And then there are two things which can happen. So a person can think even of completely switching off to change a career. Some can think about quitting the career at all and say, maybe I'm going for different ways of entrepreneurship and all that. So, but the question which comes back is like, one need to ask themselves, why do you want to change? And then what exactly that you want to do? And then what will that change bring into your life and then into a career? So those are very much important, that we ask ourselves those questions so that we carefully navigate in terms of how do we best adjust, and then also to check. The many companies I know, they have very good career plans which they have for the youth, but the problem is that those plans, they don't come to you, and then you should be looking out for those plans and take advantage of them.
No, that's actually some insightful feedback as well. And I think something that you mentioned when you started giving me your response is the fact that you went ahead and enrolled in different courses, right? To try and sharpen your knowledge and skills and so on. But there's also that fear when you transitioning into the work environment that you might be deemed as too overqualified. So if the company is looking to employ you as a junior engineer, someone that comes in with a master's or PhD, they have a relatively different expectation versus to someone that comes in with their BEng or BSc, right? So for the same amount that they're paying, they most likely would want to employ someone that has a BSc than that has an MSc. And a complete spectrum, opposite spectrum to that would be someone with a master's has more knowledge and has an added advantage compared to someone that only has a BSc. So what's your take onto that with the whole term of being too overly qualified as you're leaving university?
Yeah. No, I've heard people many times saying one can be overqualified, but I've asked them, like, what is it that is it overqualified? Do we have things, something like that overqualified? Because for me, there's always misalignment in a sense that one cannot be doing research or a PhD and specializing in research, and then a person want to go and be a process controller. So it's not like you're overqualified. You are misaligned, and then that's the place where you should not even be placed and not even be thinking of going there, because that's not where you are needed. But Wesley, remember, we're in a country where we have more than so many high percentage of 66.5%. In the fourth quarter last year, the Stats SA just told us that the youth unemployment is sitting at 66.5%. And then, which in this case, graduates are ready to take everything which comes their way. That's the unfortunate part, and that's the sad reality which we are faced with now. Just to give a practical real example. So just few days, from last month, I had engagement with one colleague of mine from other company. And then he said to me that I'm trying to build up a team which it has to deal with some of acid mine water and all that. And then, but I'm starting from scratch to build a research team. And then I asked him, I said, okay, it's fine. And then how can I help? He said, no, can you please look for me if I can get people with this qualification and these qualifications where to build the research. Then to cut the story short, we have a lengthy engagement. He said, I'm looking for a process engineer. Then I said, in a water space? He said, yes. Then I said, okay, it's fine. And then now need to put the requirement in place. He said, I'm looking for a PhD. I'm like, oh, PhD, a process engineer. Okay, but that's being too much ambitious. Are you willing to pay them for that? I said, no, okay, it's fine. I can take MSc, masters, it's fine, as a minimum requirement. Okay, good, go. We have so many graduates sitting with the opportunities. We put 5 years experience and then 5 years experience. That's fine. And then at the end, he posted it, and then the reaction on the LinkedIn was like, where have you seen such a thing as we need a graduate, we need a process engineer where a master's, it's a requirement for process engineer. Where have you seen such a thing? Not even to mention the PhD in the same place, in the same sense, a PhD will be advantageous. So you can tell already that there's always a problem in terms of how do we balance the qualifications and also with the skills which we are looking for in South Africa. But for me, I don't believe that we do have overqualified people. We might have misplaced people who are placed in the roles which they were not supposed to be at that particular role which they are playing. Thanks.
I think that then it also kind of sets a bit of a predicament where, I mean, if I was to look at my own career journey, is that one of the reasons I went for chemical engineering, I think I remember back in high school, we're told that engineers get heavily paid. That's where the money's at. So it's either you worked towards becoming a doctor or a chartered accountant, or you go into engineering. I wasn't really fond of accounting, so I thought the science route actually is maybe probably where I want to be at. So hence ended up going for chemical engineering. But if I were to trace back around grade 10, grade 9, I was really someone that enjoyed geography. So I always thought I'd probably be like a nature conservationist, or go and work as a, what do they call them? The guys that do the weather, a meteorologist, right? That's essentially what I wanted to become, and I was very passionate about it. But when time went by, looking at things I needed to do at home as one of the first people to go to university, so there's already was expectations. And you find that some of the career choices that we take are based on the fact that we are chasing the income, right? We want to create stability and security. So you do find there are people that are placed in wrong environments, not because it's their choice, but it's because there's expectations that they need to sort of meet. But then once the decision has been made, you are in that career, and then you realize this doesn't then work for you. What's the advice that you'd give someone that's in that type of situation and they're still looking to navigate or further follow their passion?
Now, I think there is always time for everything. I was listening to one of the radio station. The guy was making a joke out of it, saying that I've joined the radio when I was 15. I always knew where I want to go. But now we had a lot of people claiming that there are masters of these radios, and then but they joined radio at their 40s. And then, but that comment, it get me worried, because it's not about when do you join things, it's more about starting working. You can have Balu, who started working 20 years ago, and then you have the great Banda who started working just last year. And then, or maybe to be practical, maybe 5 years back. But in terms of other aspects of life, in terms of their discipline and everything, you might find a person who's just 5 years might be very much far ahead as compared to the person who has been in the workplace for very long, because there's good to go down to discipline. So to go back to the question which you raised, I think there's always a right time for everything. Because when you check, especially to chemical engineers themselves, the question becomes much relevant to them, because some will say they're jack of all trades, and then because you can find these people in the banks, you can find them working as a consultant, business consultant, you can find them in the plant, you can find them in the production. And then from time to time, there will be a time whereby you develop a passion for something, and then you feel that what I did initially, I like your comment which you started with, Wesley, to say I enrolled to say I want to get money, and that's common to all of us, even myself. When I did chemicals, at least the money will be good, but the question is that after getting the money, you realize that there's more in life in terms of your happiness, which comes first, the time and everything. As you grow up, you realize, wow, there's so much time which is needed, and then also the peace of mind plays a role. So from time to time, I might think that, oh, the person who just like talking. So meaning if now I get an opportunity within a particular company says that they want someone to be a communication manager, and engineers, these are very clever people. I mean, they can do everything. Engineers can move and become the communications managers. We have seen it, some engineers moving, even becoming some head of HR and all this. It's possible. So for me, I think there's no problem. A person at any time can change a career, but it goes back to the question which I've raised at the beginning to say, but you ask yourself, is this right for me? I'm passionate about, do I like what I'm doing? Because remember, immediately when you like what you are doing, a job does not become a job. A job just becomes a hobby. You feel like you are not even doing anything. Hence, you find many people can even work overtime, not even be asked to work overtime because they just like what they're doing. I can like traveling and then consider to say, you know what, I'm just going to company X so that I'm becoming a consultant and I know that I'm going to tour the whole of Africa. Thanks.
That's true. Very, very interesting. For some reason, I feel like this is a very, it's an environment full of wisdom. It's full of wisdom, you know. I'm loving this. Yunali, any questions from your side?
Yes, yeah, no, I've got a question. It kind of ties in with Wesley's also, you know, and what you said that money isn't everything. And I think you also stated that was the recent interview that, you know, you feel kind of you've got a moral obligation for innovative solutions to uplift the South African community and everything. What would be your advice now for maybe young professionals that now don't kind of feel that moral obligation, that feels, oh, you know what, South Africa is maybe too far gone, or I don't think the problem can be solved. Let me rather go overseas and try and do something there. So what would kind of be your advice for them?
Yeah, I think you ask a very much relevant and very much important question, in a sense that we as people, not even now talking about engineers, we who were likely to go to the tertiary institution and receive some particular form of education, we carry a moral obligation to work back to our communities and improve the standard of living, the standard of education, whatever that you are complaining about now, you carry the responsibility to make sure that there's a change on it. So some philosophy will say that the change starts with us. And then also some will go further to say each generation must determine its generational mission. So that itself, it means that for these graduates, which we say now, I gave up and then I'm going to oversee, but going to oversee should not be looked as abandoning the country. We have so many great South African, you can name the Trevor Noahs of this world, all these black coffees of this world. People are making South Africa look great outside the country. So I'll encourage even the graduate to say that should the opportunity be available, please make sure to go outside, go overseas and raise the flag high for the country, because you are the pillars of this country. You are the people who will come back and contribute massively to this country. There's nothing which beat the wisdom. So if there's any opportunity which comes to the graduate to say, I'm going overseas, just go for it. But just don't give up in your dreams. Don't give up. There are so many people out there. If the cycle is not beneficial to you, just try to look and change the cycle. There are so many people who are there who can encourage you and make sure that they can even mentor you and then to become the best vision of yourself.
Awesome. I think I want us to also try and look at some of the behaviors that can help us also succeed into the transition as well, right? What what I've also come across quite a lot, especially when discussing with other experienced engineers, senior engineers, and so on, is that fresh graduates into the work environment, they tend to have a different attitude, right? The attitude of I know it all, or they want to have that instant gratification when they come up with changes. They need to be implemented now. But also there's some of the habits when it comes to how they spend their finances or how they treat their careers. You find that there's a disconnect, right? Reflecting back to yourself, what are some of the things that helped you throughout your career journey? One, ensuring that you settle into the work environment well, but also you build good relationships with the people that you're working. But also from a financial point of view, what are some of the things that you would say you did quite well? And what are some of the things that you wish you could have done better?
Yeah, I think you raised much also a very good question. Maybe let me cover it and respond in this way. Maybe before I go and dwell much in terms of my own personal journey. So there are things which are very much contributing to such. First, you look in terms of the social background. The social background have a high impact in terms of how do you handle yourself in terms of in the workplace. And then also when the location also matters. The reality is that you'll have a graduate which is coming from, I'll just give maybe one of the examples which of the universities which might not be in this ICT, coming from University of Venda in Toronto and get to work in some company in Randburg. The location itself, it will be very much problematic to the graduate and can be very problematic in a sense that it will have a huge impact because you are coming from a small town, you get the work in this big area where a lot is expected, and then also that contribute to your social life itself. And then other thing is that you have the graduates who have graduated from Wits University or University of Johannesburg and going to somewhere in Mokwasi and then be placed under Motima Platinum Mine or Amanda Belt in the going to Tabazimbi, and the town which now you are faced with is Northern. That also, it has a direct impact in terms of how do you yourself adjust. So those are very much important. And also the other issue is that you also look in terms of gender differences. So we go to the places like in the mines where you have a lot of males and then you are a young lady as a graduate and you find yourself working with 10 males and then maybe 5 and then you are 1 and then maybe few of the ladies. So those are some of the things that we need to take into consideration. But even myself, I'm not unique in terms of distancing myself from those. And then what I can say, it also assisted me in terms of all these is that at some point, first, maybe the location itself, it might have contributed that I happen not to move far away and change the location, which it was good and also bad for me, because when you change the location, it can bring the positive or the negative in you. So much look at it in two different ways. And then the social background, the associations and everything, it also plays a role, because one of the things with myself is that when it comes to the career development itself and the transition as a young employee, I had people at my age who were my friends, but when it comes to issues of career, I also make friends with old people who have been in the industry, so that I can understand some of the challenges and how do I need to deal with some of these aspects. And then most of them, they became the mentors, which they have mentored me and showed me. Sometimes I remember when I was at Mintag, I have this too much energy. I remember sending even an abstract to a conference, not even sending it to my supervisor, and then get accepted. And then I was glad and jumped and went to my supervisor. I said, hey, my abstract has been accepted and and he said, wait, hold on, what are you talking about? No, I said the abstract. What I said, he gave me a very big lesson to say, man, wait, you can be fired for doing that. You don't send companies information outside without consulting me and making sure that I give you authorization to do that. But when you look at it, it was a very much positive thing that, oh, this student can even initiate to say, I can have this abstract going out, but the way and the manner in terms of how things were done was wrong. So those are some of the things that in my personal journey, when I reflect, I see that there's a lot of these mistakes. And now when I'm the senior and mentoring other people, those are the things that at always I sit down with them, maybe at least 30 minutes, not even talking technical, but about the issue of the behavior and everything, because this behavior is very important, because once you lose the behavior, even if the talent is gone, even if you have your PhD or master's, it becomes nothing, because when we're at the workplace, people first check the behavior and the work ethics. They play a very huge role, especially when we are young. People are not interested that you got a cum laude, you have 1, 2, 3. They're just interested on the work ethics, and the work ethics speaks for you in your absence. If you are not there, someone will be saying, chanting Wesley, 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 and then we can prefer Wesley for this. So you need your work ethics to speak for you, even when you are absent in that particular room.
That's very truthful. I think I definitely resonate with that, because again, I think when you look at first impressions, usually it's the behavior that first shows up before they can see the skills that you bring to the table and so on. Just a follow-up on the other question was around managing finances, because obviously you're starting work, it's a lot of money, when you start getting your engineer's salary and so on. But then what are the things that one needs to look at to ensure that you still manage to balance sustainably in terms of your cash flow without really putting yourself into unnecessary debt? I know you mentioned that environment also plays a role in terms of how you transition in that regard, but what are some of the practical aspects that you say you did quite well and some that you didn't do so well when it comes to managing your finances?
Yeah, managing finance, that has been always a challenge, and then it continues being a challenge to many young early careers employees. First thing is that we have a mindset that as engineers and doctors and all these things, we are this special breed. And then when it comes to finance, things works against us. I mean, like for simple example, let's just look at the doctors, even at the universities. As you do your final year, you'll find all these big brands bringing big cars there and then saying that you can have the car before you even start working. Send us a letter of appointment, and then it looks great. Before you even get your first salary, you can even get your Mac, which looks great. And then obvious myself, I was not unique to that particular, the very same mindset. I mean, like when I started working, I had an intern, and then I was already driving a car. So when I look at it as a, did it worth it? And then no, it was not. Even the kind of car, did it worth it for me to drive that? No. But so at the end, you get attempted, and then you take your documents, you go there, they get to approve it. And the banks are very clever, because they will approve it knowing that the future is bright, because they can see that once you crack this and this and that. But the financial literacy is what is lacking. because at the end, we are not able to manage our finances. And the people who come at the workplace to say the advice about finances, their advice is always biased to what they want to gain out of you, in a sense that if now I come from whatever financial investment, and then I will advise you based on what will be relevant. But at some point, they become biased in a sense that when we talk about financial literacy, we talk about there's so many terms which comes in place, interest and all that and all that. So meaning now you can be saving and putting money on the side, but you find that the money you are putting that basically is not generating anything. So you are just making someone to become more and more and more and more rich. So the finance part of it and financial literacy, which I think also the universities have a huge role to play, because the universities in terms of their program for work readiness, they should be implementing the financial literacy part. And then the financial literacy part should be independent from the financial service providers, because whoever is in a business will be looking for their own interest, not too much of their interest. Like you buy a car, not even understanding what is a balloon payment. You buy a car without even not negotiating your interest rates. But what you do, you celebrate for having a car with a huge interest rate. You don't even know in terms of the compound rates, the repo rates, and all these things. So all these things, the financial literacy is very important. And then I wish that something needs to be done. And then so that all the graduates, as we transit and we go into our early careers, we avoid things like buying cars, which we don't need. We avoid things like, like at that moment, you find you have a car, you don't even have a medical aid. So you are not even valuing the asset you are, because the health, it comes first than a car. A car can get you involved in an accident, but cannot even take you to the hospital where you can get a treatment. So all these things, you have to look in terms of the house, because as a graduate, you should be even in a position to look into what is the investment. Do I need to buy a house at this point? Do I need to rent at this point? And then when we say this is an investment, how do you define it? What is a liability? So all those things, the finance part of it, it's very tricky. And then in a most graduate, you find that after 3 to 4 years in our careers, that's where we start now to realize that, no, man, I need to change this and that and that. So that is something which I think we really need to work on all of us. It's not an easy topic. It's very sensitive in such a way that even if I'm mentoring you, even the people who mentored me, they won't touch it, because some of them, they might be struggling in terms of how to deal with it themselves. And then also when you go down in terms of asking that, you get out, you balance the finances and all these things, it's a sensitive topic. But we must be ready to talk about and open up so that we are in a position to get help as soon as possible. Thanks.
No, I fully resonate with that. I think one of the things that do need attention indeed is that financial literacy. And I think not only for graduates as well. As you transition from high school to university, I think that's also quite relevant, because that's where you start getting some stipend from bursaries, which would be quite significant compared to the amount that you were getting in high school. So starting to learn how to use money, how to save, I think should start quite early, because then when you start getting your salary as an employee, then in that regard, you sort of have a good foundation set already, without having to fall for peer pressures or any other of those social pressures as well. Yunali, any questions or comments on your end?
Yeah, no, I've got also a comment on the buying a car thing. I remember in my final year at university, the one lecturer, he gave a list of everything that you're not supposed to do within the first year of working, and one, like, buy a new car, because then you tell the people that you work with that you don't know how to work with money. So it's very good and sound advice. But I have another question that is just kind of that I experienced in my career as well, where you do the right thing. You go and study engineering, and then you start applying for work, and then you don't get work. Or you do the right thing again, and you go and sign up for a master's, but then you find out that you maybe don't have time to do it, and then you kind of deregister. So just the fact that obviously as life goes, even if when you're starting out, you're going to have disappointments and things that you're not able to achieve as what you thought you were going to achieve or be able to do. What is your advice then to kind of deal with these disappointments and hindrances and speed bumps and still do what you have to kind of? You're still muted.
All right. No, thanks. My apology for that. And then it's not an easy thing for one to say you can give advice which can be relevant to all. But what I can say is that the most important thing is that we need to be flexible as human beings, which people like the kind of the group which is in attendance here, we are trained through the education system itself to be much flexible in terms of the changes, because we do a lot of back and forth in terms of the corrections, the work we're doing and all that. So, which means that when you realize that there's something, some aspects of life, whether it's finance and what, which is not going on, and then one need to reflect, stop, pause, reflect, and then seek advice, talk to people who might be very close and also understanding the environment and the situation. But one thing which make me to have peace is that every situation which we come across is not a new situation. So meaning whatever journey which we embark on, others have traveled before us. But what matters the most is that do we have time to go to those who have traveled the journey before us and engage us so that we can do some corrections in some of the things which might have went wrong, on what we also need to change in some aspects of our careers, so that what matters at the end will be the end result you see. It's like someone enrolling for studies. The back and forth of the correction of your dissertation or a thesis, it can only be known by you and your supervisor. Even the first vision, how poor it was, it can only be known by you and your supervisor. But what we see on the surface is just this happy face celebrating, and then seeing this smart person with just got the MSc or PhD in metallurgy. So we don't see the back and the forth and the struggle. So it's in the same way that when we look in terms of the changes which we need to imply, it doesn't matter whether how bad the situation was, but what we see at the end is that once you seek advice and you get advices, and then what we'll see, we'll just see a person who's well-disciplined and also doing what they like. Thanks.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you very much. I want to maybe jump back to the journey that you actually took from studying for your master's, for you going all the way to doing your PhD. But I think also most importantly, the fact that you're one of the 2020 Million Guardian top 200 young South Africans, right? In the category of science and
Yes.
technology. So to what extent has postgraduate studies propelled your career, but also to what extent did they contribute towards some of the successes that you had? For example, making it to the 2020 Million Guardian top 200 young South Africans as well.
Yeah, I think it has much to do with the constant discipline, and also the passion for being great, one should not shy away from. All of us, we want to be this great person. And then when you want to be a great person, meaning you need to be consistent in terms of your performance. The trick part about the performance is that you can become great. Today, it's more like a yo-yo. And then the next time people overtake you and then you are down. So that's when there's no consistency in terms of your approach. So what I've put much effort on was to be consistent throughout the journey. Several awards which I've managed to get in terms of the presentation, starting when I'm doing my master's, going to the PhD and all that. So all this, it comes with a continuous effort of trying to be a great person. And then I always tell people that when you strive to do the best in what you do, you'll always be on top. And then I remember there was I will be very picky to just to give one example. There was one conference which I needed to attend, and then I missed the time, and then I was reminded that the conference basically is today, and then lucky enough I have to go to the conference. I went to do the presentation, which I have never prepared, but no one saw that I was not even prepared. Presentation slides, I did them as I was taking the transport, the driver was taking me there. And then at the end of that, I happened to be the best presenter. And then how come that you were not prepared, but you were the best oral presenter? And then that it happens because your work is what you do and becomes something of in your daily life. Your work becomes something you like, that even if now one can ask me a question about my work, I don't see a reason for me to be even arrogant. Even the time I can tell I don't know. So if I say I don't know, and then not knowing anything does not make one to be stupid. So those are some of the things that, because it takes someone clever to know what they know and what they don't know. So yeah, I think we just need to keep doing the good, and then the rest will just follow. So if we're excellent, and then the success will just keep chasing us no matter where you go.
No, that's true indeed. Something that you also did highlight was the fact that, you know, youth unemployment is quite high in that 66% range, but chances are that rate will keep growing, right? Until we step up as well as young people, as young professionals, to play our role when it comes to addressing some of the challenges that we face as a country. So with that in mind, have you started in any way on your side playing an active role to try and address some of the challenges that we have as a country?
Yeah, I did, because now the project which I'm doing are more into water and energy. And then when you take in terms of the two, these are the critical challenges, especially for our country at the moment. It's no secret that we have a long history now of the challenges around the energy and the transition moving into the renewable energy. And then also the sad reality is that we depend much on the coal, which is the backbone of our economy and all that. So all these are the things which now we are busy also dealing with. And also when it comes to water, we have dysfunctional wastewater treatment plants all over the country, which is one of the projects which I'm trying I'm working on currently, and then developing technologies also for that. And then also in the space of mining water. So all these, they have a direct impact into the country itself. But besides science, what do we do outside science? And also I'm a commentator for the
I think we might have lost you a bit there, Dr. Baloyi. Yunali, just to confirm, you're also experiencing delay from Dr. Baloyi's side, correct?
Yes, no, I am, and now I see he's completely gone.
Yes, yeah, he's been logged
Yeah.
off.
Maybe just some connectivity issues.
Okay,
He's
so
joining
just
again.
give him, a minute.
No, I'm back. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's a network.
Yeah, I think probably there's a network delay. So maybe what you can do for now, you can just keep your camera off. That should help with the
Okay.
bandwidth as well.
All right.
So yes, you're saying you're a commentator?
Yeah, I was saying I do some commentator in terms of SABC education, which we make awareness in terms of all the contribution which are happening in terms of the field of science, and which are also contributed to taking the knowledge which we have to the general people at large, and also that's some of the things, our role as engineers and scientists, to make sure that we don't only benefit the companies which are working for, or benefit only people at a particular class, but we benefit everyone who might need to benefit from our knowledge. So yeah, so that's what I'm busy with at the moment.
Okay, well, that's actually quite interesting, because again, I think what I believe in is, as much as a country might have challenges, but there's definitely somewhere that we can add value and participate in as well. And as you mentioned, that with each generation, we need to decide what is it that we're not going to be remembered for, but also what is the challenges that we're going to tackle as a generation as well. We should not be bystanders or just spectators, but actively also play that that role. Yunali, any questions from your end?
Yes, I think this is maybe a bit less serious and everything. What is your opinion on the kind of, like, you know, engaging socially and having fun and everything at, you know, kind of in the work environment? Because I think sometimes people, especially when you start out, I know myself, I was quite hesitant to actually, you know, if there is social events at the workplace or things like that, to engage in it, because I was like, okay, now I'm young and I don't know the people that well and everything. So let me just not. But would you encourage to actually participate in that?
Yes, of course, I will, because remember, how many graduates are graduating from a particular university within a year? From 10 colleges, there are so many. And the degree itself cannot set you apart. And then what set you apart? And then what set you apart, it's all these other activities which you find yourself involving yourself on. So if you are at the workplace, make sure that if there are committees and all this, find yourself being involved in these committees, and then you will see that it's even keep yourself busy, and then so it also improve your communication skills, to also improve your social life. I mean, like when I started working, I was highly involved in terms of these committees at the workplace. Some of them you have to be, imagine as a young person, now you start to mingle with the CEO because you are on another committee, and then the person who you cannot even easily access until you get to a certain stage. So it opens a lot of doors, which it assists you even to think and understand where the company is going, and even the changes which are taking place within the company because of your participation, which are involved in different.
Now that's great. Now I also think it's just sometimes, you know, you have to get over that fear of maybe being new there, not knowing what to say and everything. But it does help you to engage with people and get over, you know, sometimes this perception of, oh my word, it's a CEO and I can't talk to him or her.
Let's socialize.
Yeah, actually just realize everybody's human, you can socialize with them, and then yeah, it does progress your career or possibly just your confidence in the workplace.
No, that's definitely true. I see Tsepang has raised their hand. They have a question. Camilla, please assist with that. May I go ahead, Tsepang?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good afternoon to the host and Dr. Baloy. My question is, well, I'm a recent graduate. I graduated at the University of Pretoria and in BSc Engineering Geology. And, you know, just of recent, obviously, South Africa ranked in the bottom 10 with regards to the Fraser's Institute annual survey, you know. So my question is basically like, you know, as a recent graduate actively seeking employment in the mining industry, you know, should we still have like the vitality of working in that industry, should we transition into diversify our careers rather? So yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsepang. Dr. Baloy? Okay. I think probably Dr. Baloy might be having some
Yeah, I think he
delays.
might be having some technical issues there. I'm just gonna
I
send him
can
a
respond.
message.
Yeah, so I can respond that so long. To be honest, Tsepang, if you look at the mining industry and South Africa and Africa as a whole, it's one of the industries that sort of define us, right? And in terms of longevity, mines will be there for next coming 20, 30 years, right? So there's still value in you practicing, for example, geology in a mining environment. But it goes back to what Dr. Baloy was saying, that how passionate are you to be a geologist? There's nothing stopping you from diversifying your career as well, going into research, for example, or even going as far as going into consulting, going into business improvements. So there's a lot that you can do, but at the end of the day, it also depends on what opportunities are there. So do not sit if you don't get any opportunities within the mining industry. If there's opportunities opening up in research, go for it. Because at the end of the day, you can always converge back to the path that you initially had intended. But what's important at the moment is to start getting the experience and getting exposure within your career and within the industry as well. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So we've actually reached the end of our session. I'd like to thank you all our attendees. Thank you to our panelists as well as the SIMM for allowing us to meet and host us as well. I think one of the things that Junali just mentioned is the importance of us to actually start socializing, start networking. So I always encourage that within your space, within the mining space and so on, start making connections, either it be on LinkedIn, either it be in the research environment, people that you went to universities with, because then that allows you to also get opportunities, but most importantly, allows us to learn from each other. So do stay in touch, follow the SIMM YPC page so that whenever there's other initiatives that we host and we engage our members on, you get to then participate, but most importantly, grow as well. Yunali, any last words from your side?
Yeah, no, I just agree on the engagement and the socializing and everything, because I experienced also in my career that it can actually, you would be surprised what difference it could make. That where someone could just give you a suggestion on where to possibly apply for work, or who to talk to assist you with this problem you're busy having, or you just end up at a conference and you realize, oh, well, I actually know this person because we've connected on to Saeed. Right. So a good thing to do, the networking within your field, is also, I think, the message I would like to leave with. And to thank Dr. Baloyi for his time, even though he isn't here.
Fantastic. Just a feedback as well. The recording will be made available. Another way we'll also share the. So what we normally do is with the webinars, we upload them on YouTube, and then we'll try and share the link as well on LinkedIn. So as mentioned, do make use of that page, comment, share, and if there's any requests, again, you feel free to voice out those requests, because at the end of the day, the role that we play is to try and empower young professionals as much as possible. But also, I think what we try and do is so that if there's other challenges as a country or as young professionals that we're facing, to start discussing them, but most importantly, start tackling as well, so that we try and then close off that loop. And then with regards to the YPC having plans for any physical meetup, I think we're still looking into that, but with COVID restrictions easing up, one of the things that we're also looking into is having more hybrid events. So we would have physical and others can also have participate electronically. So that will be coming up. And again, watch out on the page for updates as well as feedback from us for any new developments. I think that should be about it. Let's continue engaging. Thanks for attending. Cheers.
Thanks, Kundwani. Thanks, Dr. Baloyi, Yunali.
Bye.